The anniversary edition of AEW Dynamite was kind of meh. Wasn't as good as the first episode of 2020. It was still solid. It was just some things on this show really pissed me off. Let's get into it. This is All Elite Review. What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the PackerMan, and welcome to today's edition of All Elite Review, where today we are going to be reviewing the 14th episode of AEW Dynamite, which took place in Southaven, Mississippi. This show was admittedly not as good as the previous week's episode, all of which we're going to be getting to in a minute. But first up, here are what the rankings look like. So here are those. And also one other thing I would like to say is good job to AEW for updating how they look, and also including the champion on these now, so I don't have to do the whole rigmarole of adding that in as well. So thank ya. So here are the rankings. Alright, well, there are your updated rankings after the homecoming show at Jacksonville, and then of course the episode of AEW Dark. So now we're going to head into this edition of AEW Dynamite, which had some good things on it, but also some hair-pulling things that really fucking pissed me off. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first match was a tag team match between who I've dubbed as the Omega Cowboys, Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page against Private Party. This was a pretty good match. Highlights of this match: Private Party start out with their camel clutch double stomp on Page, which is typical Private Party. Page hits a suplexes Cassidy onto Quinn. Omega hits a pendulum backbreaker on Cassidy. Cassidy with an outside-in flatliner on Omega, which looked really nice. Quinn starts stringing together high-flying moves, like a tope suicida, a somersault plancha, and the sky twister press, also known as the Fosbury flop. Quinn hits a nice 450 splash on Page for a 2 count. Cassidy hits a standing Spanish fly on Page for a 2 count. Page hits the big boot on Cassidy and then a fallaway slam on Mark Quinn. Both him and Omega start doing tag team offense on Cassidy. Only gets a 2 count. Omega hits a Snapdragon suplex on Quinn. Private Party hits the silly string on Omega, only gets a 2 count. Quinn misses the shooting star press. The Omega Cowboys hit a big boot, a V trigger, and then a discus lariat, gets a 2 count. There was one point where the same thing nearly happened in this case as a previous tag team match that they were in, where Page goes for the buckshot lariat, misses his intended target, and hits Omega. This time around, he comes to a stop before he hits Omega, but he gets pushed into Omega. And then Private Party hit the gin and juice on Kenny Omega, only gets a 2 count before Adam Page breaks it up. And then both Page and Omega hit a V-trigger buckshot lariat combo. And then Omega hits the one-winged angel for the 3 count and the victory. So, your winners are the Omega Cowboys. Pretty good match. I gave this 3.5 stars out of 5. Then afterwards, they showed on the Titantron that Pac attacked Michael Nakazawa backstage once again with the Brutalizer, basically wanting his rubber match with Omega. Of course, that's probably going to take place at Revolution. So, of course, they were involved in the 6-man tag in the main event, the previous week, but evidently that wasn't enough for Pac. He still wants, Kenny Omega in a rubber match. So, I would expect that to happen at Revolution. In the meantime, Adam Page goes into the crowd and starts, getting drinks from everybody. So, kind of continuing that angle. And then we get to what was easily the most infuriating match of the whole night. The AEW Women's World Title match between Chris Statlander and Riho. This has nothing to do with the two participants in the match, because they started out fucking fantastic in this match. I mean, this had the potential to be a 4-star match. Maybe even higher than that, depending on what happened. And honestly, I was expecting them to give the belt to Statlander, considering, how they basically strapped a rocket ship to her. Considering that she was, one of the biggest prospects of 2019, and how AEW managed to snap her out from underneath of WWE. Considering how good of a worker she is, despite her limited experience, and of course, knowing what a good worker Riho is, this was a highly anticipated match, and in my opinion, it was living up to its billing early on. So, highlights of this match. Riho had a nice Frankensteiner by jumping from the middle rope. Nice arm drag counter. Statlander had a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker, and then a stalling body slam for a 2 count. She even did a, no, look, no hands kind of thing. Riho does her victory roll stomp and then a running knee strike. I mean, some of these moves were hard hitting. I was like, Jesus Christ, they're going Smash Mouth here, because they really wanted to, get the women's division back up, back on track here. And, from, the Fatal 4-Way last week was awesome, and then this match at the beginning was fucking awesome too. They were going for hard hitting moves, and even at one point, near the end of the match, you saw that Riho actually had a, was bleeding from her mouth. So, maybe she was a little too Smash Mouth in this case. Statlander goes for a moonsault, but misses when Riho rolls out of the way. Riho hits a Northern Lights suplex, a nice Northern Lights suplex, only gets a 2 count. Statlander hits a nice stalling superplex. And this is where it all went to shit, because Brandy Rhodes was at the commentary table, and that in and of itself wasn't bad, because obviously her group has a beef with Statlander now, because Statlander turned them down. So that wasn't the terrible thing. What was the terrible thing was the fucking Nightmare Collective coming out to ringside, Mel and Awesome Kong, and they start interfering in this fucking match. And I'm just like, are you fucking serious right now? Like, what is this bullshit? And then Brandy leaves the commentary table and gets in Chris Statlander's face, and then out from the ring comes, the bald dude that they had in like backstage promos and shit like that. Apparently his name is Luther in this case, but apparently he's a Japanese deathmatch legend. But you couldn't have waited until after the fucking match to do this shit. Like, seriously? Not only that, Luther causes a distraction by grabbing Statlander's arm, and Awesome Kong hits a lariat. And at this point, I'm just thinking, where the fuck is the referee at this point? Like, this is a sequence that went on for about 2 or 3 minutes, which is forever in a fucking wrestling match. And the referee is nowhere to be fucking found. Like, what is this shit? I mean, this completely ruined the fucking match for me. You know, a highly anticipated match, and you do this shit. You know, eventually Statlander tried to go for the Big Bang Theory, but she gets tripped by fucking Awesome Kong. And Riho gets the 3 count and the victory, although you could tell in kayfabe and storyline she wasn't exactly pleased, because she even attacked Luther during the match as well. She went up to the top rope, was probably going to go for the coup de grace, but ended up diving to the outside and taking out Luther. She basically told you, I don't want any fucking help. So even though she won the match and retained the title, she didn't look that pleased. So, and honestly, I wouldn't be pleased either, and especially as a fan, because this was a highly anticipated match, and AEW, you fucked it up. Okay, because here's the problem. Nobody gives a flying fuck about the Nightmare Collective. It is not getting over with the crowd as a heel group. It's just not. It's not working. I mean, I understand your dedication to it, you know, and you want to see it through to the end, but at some point, you got to cut your fucking losses. The Nightmare Collective is not working. It's time to cut the fucking cord. It's time to pull the plug on this. It's not working. Because the crowd, when the whole thing with the Nightmare Collective was going on, the crowd was silent as shit. Like, nobody there gave a fuck about this. And this ruined a damn good match. What was a damn good match, but then you had to do this stupid fucking bullshit. I mean, this went from a potential 4-star match to just 2. 2 stars out of 5. And then afterwards, the Nightmare Collective start attacking both Statlander and Riho. Hikaru Shida and Britt Baker were watching at ringside. They were basically in the crowd. And Shida jumped over the guardrail and started attacking the Collective. Big Swole and what the fuck's his name? Sunny Kiss. There we go. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain fart. I'm a little bit tired. By the way, this is not beer, it's cream soda. But yeah, all of them come out and chase the Nightmare Collective away, which is going to lead to a tag match for Bash at the Beach between Chris Statlander and Hikaru Shida and Awesome Kong and Mel. That's been signed for Bash at the Beach. One thing of note is that Britt Baker stayed in her seat. So that was pretty much the second sign that they are sowing the seeds for a Britt Baker heel turn. So, you know, if the previous week with that scathing, you know, attack on Riho wasn't enough, you know, now you got this not helping out against the Nightmare Collective. It's pretty obvious that they're setting up a Britt Baker heel turn. You can see it coming. And honestly, maybe that's the thing that she needs, because, you know, there are times when she's been inconsistent with her, you know, performances. Of course, that wasn't the case in the Fatal 4-Way the previous week, but maybe that's what she needs to, you know, light a fire on her, you know. But yeah, the Nightmare Collective shit needs to go. It's fucking stupid. It's run its course. It wasn't that good to begin with. I was willing to give it a chance, but this was the last straw. I'm done with the Nightmare Collective. Fuck the Nightmare Collective. It is dumb. It's time to pull the fucking plug. It's not working. And that's all I gotta say about that. The next match was a singles match between Christopher Daniels and Sammy Guevara. Not really much to this one. Highlights of this match: Daniels with a arm drag, a hip toss, and a body slam. Guevara hits a nice diving double stomp for a 2 count, and then of course a Samoan drop where he, you know, he kind of poses and all this other shit. Guevara hits a nice roundhouse kick. Daniels hits an exploder suplex and the Blue Thunder Bomb for a 2 count. Guevara hits a running shooting star press for a 2 count. Both of them hit lariats. Daniels hits a Uranagi, sets up for the Angels Wings, but then Pentagon interrupts and basically challenges Daniels to do that Arabian moonsault. Like, show me you can do it. And it's like, wow, Pentagon's actually speaking English. Usually he's, taunting and shit in Spanish. But this time around, he's like, he could speak English, But it's just so jarring to hear it because we hadn't heard it before, At least I hadn't heard it before. So it was a little bit jarring, but it's like, damn, he is bilingual. But Guevara takes advantage of it and hits a super kick to the back of the head for the 3 count in the victory. So Guevara with 2 wins, albeit by questionable means. But yeah, even though this wasn't technically an interference, it was still a distraction, and it's like, I'm not a fan of that either. This match gets 2.5 stars out of 5. And then afterwards, the Dark Order comes out and tries to recruit Daniels. So, there were a lot of people that were suspecting that the higher power that, that the Dark, that the Dark Order had, Eva Uno was basically talking to someone who's, higher on the totem pole than he is. A lot of people were suspecting it may have been Christopher Daniels, perhaps, which, would make sense considering his Fallen Angel gimmick in the past, when he was a heel. Kind of that dark, brooding character, It's like Daniels would probably be the perfect person to lead the Dark Order, in this case as the Fallen Angel. But he rejects the mask. Dark Order starts attacking Daniels, but then SCU and the Young Bucks come out to even up the odds. Of course, if you remember, the last episode of 2019, the Dark Order attacked SCU and the Young Bucks. So, now we're probably going to have an all-out war between SCU, the Young Bucks, and the Dark Order. So, I would imagine there's got to be some kind of War Games match coming or something like that. But we'll see. So, the next match is a tag team match. The Brotherhood. Cody and Dustin Rhodes taking on the Lucha Brothers. For the first time ever, as it turned out. So, highlights of this match. And this was a pretty good match. There was a great exchange between both teams where they were tagging in and out and trying to do different moves and stuff. Felix hits a nice super kick on Cody, but Cody hits a super kick of his own on Pentagon. Pentagon hits a Gamangiri and coup de grace on Dustin. Phoenix starts hitting thigh kicks on Dustin. The Lucha Brothers start working over Dustin's left leg. Dustin hits a backdrop on Phoenix, then a spine buster on Phoenix. That was a nice spine buster, by the way. Tags Cody in. Cody hits a Frankensteiner, a power slam, a tope suicida, a bicycle kick, and then the 10 punch in the corner. Phoenix hits his, faint, 619 style roundhouse kick, and then a rolling cutter on Cody, which looked nice. Phoenix hits the tightrope kick on Cody, and then Pentagon hits the pump handle driver on Cody, and that looked nasty. Dustin hits a nice destroyer on Phoenix. Cody hits the Cody cutter on Pentagon, and then Dustin hits the final reckoning on Phoenix for the 3 count in the victory. So a surprise victory for the Brotherhood. Over the Lucha Brothers, who were the number 3 ranked team coming in. So that was a big win for them. But definitely a damn good match. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. MJF comes out next to cut a promo. Basically talking like, yeah, and Cody's not going to accept my challenge, and all this shit. DDP then comes out next to face down MJF and Wardlow. MJF brings out the Butcher and the Blade and starts talking trash to DDP. DDP hits a couple of nice diamond cutters on the Butcher and the Blade. MJF low blows Diamond Dallas Page. Was going to start attacking him, but then QT Marshall, Dustin Rhodes, and a couple others come out and run MJF off, which leads to the booking of a 6-man tag for Bash at the Beach with MJF, the Butcher, and the Blade taking on DDP, QT Marshall, and Dustin Rhodes. So that'll take place at Bash at the Beach. And then the final match of the night, not technically the main event, yes, believe it or not, was a 6-man tag match with Jurassic Express taking on the Best Friends. Highlights of the match, Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt hit their Ripcord 450 splash leg drop combo for a 2 count. Chucky T hits a Falcon Arrow. Jungle Boy with a nice lariat. Luchasaurus with a roundhouse kick and then his tail whip on Trent. Luchasaurus and Orange Cassidy face off in the ring. And of course, when you have two mega over guys like Luchasaurus and Orange Cassidy in the ring, the roof came off the fucking place. Cassidy with a nice suplex into a stunner combo on, I believe it was Luchasaurus, and a tope suicida on Luchasaurus. Jungle Boy with a German suplex on Trent. Trent hits a spear on Jungle Boy. Cassidy with the lazy splash for a 2 count. Marco Stunt hits a flatliner and a Canadian Destroyer, which looked really nice. Luchasaurus launches Marco onto the best friends. Chucky T tries to go for a powerbomb on Jungle Boy, but Jungle Boy counters with a Hurricane Rana for the 3 count and the victory. So it's Jungle Boy's first pinfall victory in AEW. And the Jurassic Express start 2020 on the high note. So good job by them. This was a pretty good match overall. I gave it 3.25 stars out of 5. And then AEW actually did something different for a change. You know, the first 13 episodes of AEW Dynamite, you know, saw the main event time slot, you know, feature a main event match for each of the 13 episodes previous to this. They changed it up this time, where in the main event time slot for this episode of Dynamite is Jon Moxley's answer to Chris Jericho as to whether or not he was going to join the Inner Circle. So the Inner Circle comes out, you know, they have the bottles of champagne in the ring. Of course, Moxley starts going off like, you know, all the stuff that you offer me, I don't want it, you know, but I want to take over professional wrestling, you know, and in particular All Elite Wrestling. So my answer is yes, which shocked the fans in the arena, you know, because it's like, holy shit, he's actually joining the Inner Circle. And he unzipped his leather jacket and he revealed that he was wearing the Inner Circle shirt. So it's like, holy shit, you know, it was something that was pretty shocking to a lot of people. And it's like, damn, he actually joined the Inner Circle. But then he looked at the camera and he winked at the camera. I was kind of like, oh shit, he's gonna swerve him. You know, some say it was kind of predictable, but you know, the way they did it, just it was so good because it sucked the crowd in, because then the crowd started like, you sold out, you know, the you sold out chants started echoing throughout the arena. So that means they bought it hook, line, and sinker. You know, and then I saw, you know, Moxley wink at the camera, and I'm like, oh shit, this is not going to be how it goes down. And then Moxley is like, psych! Well, he didn't say psych, but he's like, I'm kidding. You know, the Inner Circle's a stupid group. You have nothing that I want except for that. Then he takes a bottle of the champagne and smashes it over Jericho's head. And it's like, oh shit. And he hits the paradigm shift on Jericho. Guevara gets hit with a paradigm shift. And it looked like what was planned was Moxley was going to hit Jake Hager with a bottle as well. But because of how brittle sugar glass can be, the bottle actually fucking broke in Moxley's hand before he could smash it over Hager's head. So he ended up having to, you know, get out of the ring, unfortunately. But that was still a great segment, and basically established that, yeah, we got Moxley and Jericho probably in, you know, an AEW World Title match at Revolution. So that's going to be something that's going to be worth looking forward to for sure. But overall, this show was solid. It wasn't as good as the Homecoming episode, unfortunately. Well, with that frickin', you know, Nightmare Collective bullshit, which really put a damper on things a little bit. You know, the matches were still pretty good. Nothing, you know, mind-blowing, but, you know, it is what it is. But it was still a solid episode of AEW Dynamite. And of course, you know, the whole Moxley Jericho thing certainly has an intrigue going into Bash at the Beach. So, overall, my final rating for this show, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. It was alright. It wasn't spectacular, you know, but it was alright. But, you know, the intrigue is there for Bash at the Beach this coming Wednesday night. So, there's that. As for the Wednesday Night Wars, if you're wondering, how many people watched AEW Dynamite and NXT, Dynamite had 947,000 people watch. So it was a slight dip from the previous week, but only 20,000. They still nearly pulled 1 million frickin' viewers this week. And NXT, surprisingly, only had about 7,250,000. That's 720,000. So all of a sudden, the momentum has shifted back to AEW. Whereas at the end of 2019, it was all in NXT's direction. Now all of a sudden, AEW has all the momentum once again. Despite the fact that this was not as good a show as the previous episode. But be that as it may, they still pulled in over 900,000 people. Which is a lot of fucking people. You know what I mean? So if you're keeping score at home, that means that AEW has 9, NXT 3, with 1 draw. After 13 comparable head-to-head matches. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this coming week, with, I think NXT has a couple of championship matches this Wednesday night. And then, of course, you have AEW with Bash at the Beach. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see. And, of course, you have the whole Cody MJF thing, which, Cody, I think, is going to address the stipulations that were laid down. So there's that. But, this week in wrestling, for Wednesday night is going to be, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how it turns out. But that'll do it for this edition of All Elite Review. That's 2 reviews down in 1 day. Woohoo! Needed to get them done anyways. I've been a little bit behind, but I've been busy with a lot of shit. Of course, moving shit around in my house. Moving my computer and shit out here to the living room where I have more room. Now that I've set up a new L desk, which gives me a lot more room to do shit. So that's all good. But these reviews are now done. Just need to edit them and upload them, and that'll be it. As well as a lot of other shit that I'm uploading now on a weekly basis with, Green and Gold Games and all that shit. And then you have the Fuel that's coming up in February. Flea Market Hunter is coming back in April, so this year is going to be a very busy fucking year for me on YouTube. And on BitChute, for that matter. But thank you very much for watching. That'll do it for this edition of All Elite Review. Next time, it is Bash at the Beach, where I'll finally give you my brainstorming ideas about some of the things that AEW could do to improve some things for 2020. So, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, this is the PackerMan signing out. Bye. You better like and subscribe or face the consequences. You have been warned.